Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today it is finally time for us to review Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokémon Let's Go Eevee. I mean, they're basically the same game. This review was originally written by the phenomenal Ryan Craddock and has been adapted for video by me, as usual. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling, let's dive right into things. With the Switch gearing up for its second holiday season on the market, the time has finally come for the hybrid machine to get its first taste of the core Pokémon series. Acting as a reimagining of Pokémon Yellow, an already enhanced version of the series' first titles being Red and Blue, Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee have taken all the nostalgia-filled loveliness of their origins, added a healthy sprinkling of modern flavourings and preservatives, and cooked up a brand new entry full of fan service, bold changes, and plenty of intrigue. So without further ado, let's go and explore everything that these games have to offer. I didn't write that. For fans of the original title, walking through this reimagined version of Kanto is a dream come true. Seeing all the cities and characters come to life with a new HD makeover and cutesy animations brings back memories of our first experiences with the franchise, fully realizing the level of detail we imagined in our heads rather than the blurry pixels present on our Game Boy screens. It isn't just the overall art style that impresses either. Little details like Pokémon posters on bedroom walls, adorable oddish vases in living spaces, and paintings lining the walls of the much more majestic SS Anne make the world feel more alive than ever. Having said that, everything has been meticulously recreated to ensure that even the most die-hard fans of the original will be pleased. The creepy man standing outside of the Celadon City gym, he's there. The singing Jigglypuff in the Pokémon Center next to Mount Moon? It's there. As fans of the original games who know Kanto like the back of our hands, we couldn't help but smile seeing all of these moments reintroduced, and we wish that the absolute cacophony of trailers that have appeared over the last few months hadn't quite spoiled just as much of the world's familiar scenes. Of course, there are some very significant changes in the actual gameplay, including the way you now catch your Pokémon friends, and this has had more of an impact than you might initially expect. You'll still be working your way to the Pokémon League, earning gym badges on the road to becoming champion, but Pokémon Let's Go takes heavy inspiration from the mobile sensation Pokémon Go, scrapping the usual battle, weaken and mechanic capture for a simpler throw-the-ball-only catching scenario. A coloured ring appears in front of your target monster, with the colour in question letting you know how difficult the capture will be to perform, and it's your job to simply throw a Pokéball into it as it steadily shrinks, hoping for a successful catch. If you're playing docked, throws are performed by swinging your Joy-Con or Pokéball Plus controller forward as if really throwing a ball. In the early stages of the game, we quite enjoyed this technique, with each successful capture feeling incredibly satisfying. As time went on, though, it became clear that the new control method brought with it several issues that slowly but surely started to frustrate. If a Pokemon jumps to the left or the right of the screen, you'll likely find yourself needing to throw the ball in that direction, but getting your controller to register a diagonal throw can be highly temperamental. Sometimes we even found our ball flying to the side rather than straight as we had intended. On top of this, the on-screen throwing action will sometimes be slightly delayed from when you move the controller, annoyingly ruining what could have been an excellent throw and proving that it just can't be as accurate as the touchscreen catching on its mobile counterpart. This actually provides us with a nice chance to quickly explain the differences between the available controller setups. If you want to play on the TV, you can either use a single Joy-Con or the new Pokéball Plus controller as we previously stated. The Pokéball controller is fun, has a lovely high-quality feel to it, and can even be used to take your Pokemon out for a walk in the real world, but it can actually be pretty frustrating to use. The A button, in the broadest sense, which selects options from menus, is mapped to a press of the control stick, making it all too easy to move the stick just before pressing it and selecting the wrong option. And navigating menus takes longer with access to just 2 buttons. The single Joy-Con approach is much more comfortable in many ways, with no mistakes occurring from button placement, and performing actions in the game's menus is effortless effortlessly quick and easy, as it should be. Truth be told, we found ourselves favouring the Joy-Con for the most part. If you sacrifice the magic of having your Pokémon on the big screen, playing in handheld feels much closer to games gone by. The catching mechanic is tremendously improved as well. You throw a ball with the A button rather than swinging anything, and you can follow the Pokémon around the screen either using gyro movements or with the left stick. The gyro is always turned on, so subtle movements will make your aim wobble, but we found this so much easier to use when catching trickier Pokémon later in the game. There are pros and cons to each setup, and we usually found ourselves switching from single Joy-Con to handheld and back again depending on our in-game situation. An awful lot has been said about how the new games seem easier to beat than previous installments in the series, and this is very true, although this change in difficulty presents itself in multiple ways that are usually for the better. For example, a second player can jump in at almost any time, giving newcomers a helping hand, whether by doubling up in battle or helping to catch a Pokémon, but this is completely optional and extremely nicely executed. The second player can effortlessly drop in or drop out with a single shake of a Joy-Con, allowing a more experienced player to take control of a second Pokémon in a tricky battle if their friend is struggling, but there's never any need to do this if you'd rather play alone. A lot of the ease comes from simple refinement, which actually allows the now 20-year-old game to feel a lot less of a chore to play through. While Pokémon can now be seen in the overworld rather than simply existing as random encounters, meaning you can actually travel through Rock Tunnel and Mount Moon without triggering exactly 80 billion Zubats along the way. Similarly, you can now access your Pokémon storage directly from your bag and switch your party on the fly, negating the need to traverse to a Pokémon Center. These changes might take a little bit of getting used to for those who have played the games for years, but after a handful of hours you'll wonder how on earth you ever managed to live without them, and the game moves at a much quicker pace as a result. Having said that, some of the changes do take away some of the challenge in slightly unnecessary ways. The affection stat first introduced in Pokemon X and Y appears in Kanto for the first time, with your Pokemon now being able to dodge attacks, land more critical hits in battle, and even shrug off poison and paralysis effects if your bond is high enough. And key NPCs arrive to offer guidance and even offer to take you to the next location in the story in any parts of the game where you'd usually be left to your own devices. Essentially, for better or for worse, Pokemon Let's Go removes all the menacing RPG elements that feel like a chore. We never had to grind for XP to take on battles either, as opponents never caused us too much trouble until the post-game. We imagine different players will like and dislike different changes depending on their playstyle, lifestyle, and experience with the franchise. So, does this mean that the so-called hardcore audience doesn't have anything to enjoy here? Absolutely not. While we'd urge any seasoned fans of the series to think of the main story as more of a chilled-out version of games gone by, there are still plenty of things to get stuck into. For starters, each Pokemon still has its own unique independent values and effort values. I had to read that properly because Eevee is misconstrued in audio, and these can actually be worked with in a much clearer way than ever before. Catching Pokemon, or transferring them to Professor Oak, earns you candy, and these can be used to bump up individual stats. You can even use a judge ability to have each of your Pokemon stats assessed, giving you an instant look into which Pokemon might be suitable for competitive play without getting out the calculator and the graph paper and scrolling through online databases for the rest of time. If you keep catching the same Pokemon over and over again in succession, you'll also start to build up a catch combo. If you keep this combo up, you'll notice that Pokemon you start to encounter start to get much better stats, and this also increases your chances of finding a shiny Pokemon as well, although having a Pokemon flee or accidentally walking into another Pokemon on the map will break your combo, so bear that in mind. You might also be interested to know that even legendary Pokemon still have their own unique stats, and soft resetting the game before an encounter allows you to keep catching them to assess their potential. If those last couple of paragraphs went over your head, then don't worry. The games cater to people of all experience levels nicely, and players can play the game with the level which they choose, ignoring aspects which don't appeal to them if they want. Another heavy dose of challenge that's far easier to understand is the post-game Master Trainers. These are 151 different trainers who challenge you to one-on-one battles with a chosen Pokemon. Each one has a level 75 version of one Pokemon from the Pokédex, and you must face them with the same Pokemon, no items allowed. Catching all 151 Pokemon, training them all up to a high level, and working on tactics to beat each opponent is an incredible task to work towards, and one that we envision taking hundreds of hours to complete. If you want a challenge, it's there for the taking. Before we wrap things up, there are just a couple of things left to mention. Firstly, you may be aware that Pokemon Let's Go can sync up with your Pokemon Go mobile account, but unfortunately this service is yet to go live at the time of recording, but expect to be able to transfer your smartphone critters over to the main game to snag Alolan forms, version exclusives, and even play around in minigames. Similarly, the main online functionality also isn't currently accessible, but players can either trade or battle in single or double matches with other users across the internet or through local communication. To do so, players must enter the same 3-character code, and a Nintendo Switch Online subscription is needed for any online play. If there are any major issues experienced with these features, we'll be sure to update our written review over on NintendoLife.com, as we can't really update a video now, can we? Maybe I'll pin a comment or something, I don't know. Also, a quick note on performance. The game plays beautifully in dock mode with a silky smooth frame rate running throughout and a gorgeous setting and character models. We notice the occasional bit of slowdown when playing in handheld mode, always in the more heavily populated areas such as Viridian Forest, where lots of Pokemon can spawn on screen at the same time, although this didn't really have any real impact on our enjoyment. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee are both beautiful reimaginings of a video game classic, updating a 20-year-old game in ways that make it infinitely more accessible and user-friendly for a modern audience, whilst keeping the magic first discovered all those years ago. The newly introduced motion control mechanic is fun, but flawed, forcing us to shift from one playstyle to another to get the best experience, but the game manages to succeed in all other areas. With an easy route of entry for newcomers to the series and just enough post-game challenge and competitive play elements, and nostalgia of course, to please series veterans, these new titles really do offer something for everyone. They might not be an absolute masterpiece, but we'd urge any poker fans out there to give these one a go. If a Let's Go Johto sequel is on the cards, we'll happily be there waiting in line.